Intensifying clashes in Syria's coastal provinces underscore the Alawite community's rejection of the HTS-led interim government's centralised approach, reminiscent of the former Assad regime. Displaced women in northeastern Syria marked International Women's Day by linking gender equality to their struggle for freedom and the release of Abdullah Öcalan. U.S. think tank FDD's Jonathan Schanzer warned U.S. Congress that Turkey's foreign policy threatens NATO and urged sanctions, policy shifts, and closer regional cooperation. Kurdish groups took part in this year's carnival celebrations in Cologne, Germany, presenting traditional dances and costumes from different regions of Kurdistan, accompanied by live music, attracting the attention of the crowds. Learn more with Medya News.
Since the ousting of Bashar al-Assad in December 2024, Syria has been undergoing a tumultuous transition. The interim government, dominated by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, has faced mounting opposition from various marginalised groups, including the Alawite community. Recent clashes in the coastal regions have brought this dissent to the forefront, as Alawite forces, led by Brigadier General Ghiat Suleiman Dala, mount a fierce resistance against HTS control. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reports that the ongoing confrontations, which erupted last night and have now continued for over 14 hours, have resulted in at least 70 casualties. As the situation unfolds, the international community is closely monitoring the developments. The Alawite uprising underscores the deepening fragmentation of power in post-Assad Syria and highlights the complex struggle for control in a nation still reeling from years of war and instability. Displaced women in northeastern Syria marked International Women's Day by highlighting the link between gender equality, freedom, and the release of Abdullah Öcalan. Women displaced by Turkish military operations stressed that true liberation would only be achieved when they could return home. Amina Hassa, a twice displaced woman, highlighted the transformative role of gender equality in AANES-controlled areas and called for self-determination and the release of Öcalan. Emira Mikris, an Arab woman, stressed that the 8th of March has no meaning in the context of displacement and occupation. Meanwhile, women in Manbij fear renewed oppression under Turkish-backed groups, recalling their brief period of freedom after the defeat of ISIS. In contrast, women in AANES-held Hasaka celebrated their gains. Across the region, Kurdish, Arab, Syrian and Armenian women reaffirmed their role in the Rojava revolution, inspired by Öcalan's philosophy.
A congressional hearing in Washington turned the spotlight on Turkey's changing role on the world stage. Jonathan Schanzer, director of the influential U.S. think tank Foundation for Defense of Democracies, warned lawmakers that President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's government is moving in a direction that threatens U.S. and NATO security.
The U.S. can no longer afford to ignore Turkish aggression. A policy shift is needed, and I offer.
Schanzer highlighted what he called neo-Ottoman ambitions, claiming Turkey is supporting terror groups such as Hamas and al-Qaeda affiliates, an alarming charge against a nation once seen as a linchpin of stability in the region.
The U.S. should maintain its modest military presence in Syria to counter Turkish aggression. The U.S. should block Turkish attempts to deploy military forces or contractors anywhere in the Middle East.
Schanzer recommends imposing sanctions on Turkish entities that facilitate or finance terrorism, particularly those allegedly tied to groups such as al-Qaeda.
The U.S. should expose and punish Ankara's policy of allowing jihadi fighters and terror financiers to use Turkey as a transit and logistics hub.
He further advises preventing Turkey's re-entry into advanced weapons programs, including the F-35 fighter jet, until it removes Russian hardware like the S-400 system.
And finally, Congress should limit any major arms sale to Turkey until it stops supporting terrorism and destabilizing NATO.
This year's carnival celebrations in Cologne, Germany, became a colourful display of cultures as Kurdish groups joined the traditional parade through the streets of Cologne, presenting traditional Kurdish dances and clothes from different regions of Kurdistan. Kurdish groups presented their rich culture to the crowds with live music and performances of the traditional Kurdish govend dance, while handing out sweets and flowers to the crowds. A dancer from the Dances of Kurdistan group, speaking to Medya News during the carnival parade, described this spring as a season of freedom and peace, referencing the historic call made by imprisoned Kurdish leader Abdullah Öcalan on the 27th of February for peace and a democratic society.